Ray, will you come and pray for us, please?
Father God, we come to you today with humble hearts, asking you, Father, for your guidance and your leadership. That something may be gained from this meeting, Father, that will bring us closer together, that we can leave all the addictions behind and embrace you. Father, you have the answer to all our questions, and we ask you to lead us tonight, to guide us, and to give yourself glory. And Father, you give us the victory, and we'll give you all the glory. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen.
Stephanie Roberts Newman will now give us the welcome.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. Well, I just want to thank you all for being here this evening. Just give yourself a hand. I am blessed. We have been doing this for a long time. Viola is my mentor and very dear to my heart. Pastor Bray, Brother Bray is very dear to my heart. And we counted, I think, 15 years in this ministry of supporting families. Yes, 15 years. A little bit of housekeeping. This is our sign-in sheet. If you have not, or you need to, please fill out our sign-in sheet. If you need another one on your table, let me know and I will bring it around. We would like to welcome you all this evening to our St. John Missionary Baptist Church Family Support Ministry and Oklahoma Faith Network International Overdose Awareness Day. We thank you all so much for joining us. We thank you all for your heart for this issue. It is a very serious issue. It is a very prevalent issue today. And we just thank you all this evening for coming out and being willing and open-minded enough to seek information and education and learn about these things. We have visitors in the back that have information and some more things that you can learn about this evening. So once again, thank you all so much for joining us. This is a wonderful crowd. I think maybe one of our big crowds. Thank you all so much. Thank you all for our speakers this evening. We thank you all so much for joining us. And please, please, please enjoy yourselves. Amen.
Thank you, Stephanie. Our occasion today is to recognize International Overdose Awareness Day. The actual day is tomorrow, August 31st, that's recognized all over the world. We have the opportunity to have our program here at St. John on a Wednesday evening because we know we'll have a big crowd on Wednesdays. And I thank you, Pastor Jimison, for the opportunity to have this here at this time. Introductions. Michael Owens, please stand or come forward if you would. He's our from the Oklahoma Faith Network, and he is our contact there. In February, we were in this room and in the sanctuary for our opioid and stimulant abuse, the faith response to it. And it was very nice, very well attended. We did start the first recovery walk in September of 2005. I still have the t-shirts. We walked from Bennett, Washington Park, walked up 4th Street to Lincoln Boulevard, and met at the State Capitol steps. At that particular time, we had legislators in office that were very interested in recovery, rehabilitation, and getting some money toward that end. I'm not really sure about that right now as we speak. But we're carrying on with the overdose awareness because it is very prevalent. Just found out not too long ago that there is fentanyl in medical marijuana. So if you have a card and you're using medical marijuana, you may not want to do that. Very, very dangerous. Also in cocaine, marijuana, all the other substances that can be used and are used, that fentanyl is in there. Now we do have some fentanyl test strips in the back on one of the tables. You all are welcome to take one if you know someone that's using that particular substance. Introductions. Judge Kenneth Stoner, please stand. He's going to be our first speaker today. The vendors that are in the back are Hope is Alive Ministries. Wave your hand. And Ms. Ann Sandiger is going to be speaking to us, and you may have seen her. Dr. Terrence Haynes is experiencing trauma in his life right now, a death in the family, so we ask everyone to lift him up in prayer. He will not be with us this evening. And Dr. Kevin McPherson will be here shortly to speak to us as well. Care for Change. Sister Cynthia Thompson is here with SOAR. That's a prison ministry, and she has information about that as well. The young men here sitting are from Restoration Church, and you see them basically on street corners giving their little flyers out, and that has been very helpful to everyone. Well, Judge, you ready to start?
Judge Stoner.
There he is. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Come on in.
You know, whenever you talk to a group, it's always best to start with some kind of humor, right? So I had an opportunity to speak to a group called Leadership Oklahoma, and it's all this group of like leaders and CEOs and nonprofit leaders and university presidents and stuff, and it was really important, I thought, to make a good impression. So I was really thinking hard about how to be funny. I was asking my wife, I said, man, I got to think of something really funny to say. And she said, you know, honey, you should probably just skip that. You're not very funny. And I said, well, wait a minute. That's not true at all. That's not. I said, people laugh at my jokes all the time. And she said, oh, bless your heart. You know, people just laugh because you're the judge. And she said, just tell everybody your name is Judge Stoner. You're in charge of drug court. It's pretty funny. Just that's your joke right here. So anyway, it's really, I want to thank Ms. Bray and this church for hosting this and their consistency. I think this is probably the fourth one of these that I've been to, and staying on this topic is so critical. I've been invited to speak to a lot of different opioid awareness and overdose prevention, and it breaks my heart that I started doing this probably about 5 years ago, and every year it gets worse and worse. And I get to speak, when I get to interact with people at a state level and national level, and unfortunately I've really not met anybody yet that says, hey, I got a solution, I know what we need to do, this is how we're going to solve this problem. It's really a puzzle. And I notice we've got some gray hairs in this room. And y'all have been around a while, you probably know that sometimes things gotta get worse before they get better. Yes. And I don't know if that's where we're at, I hope not. I try to be optimistic about this, but it's really quite a puzzle. Back whenever I first became a judge, I'm a district judge here in Oklahoma County. That means I was originally appointed by the governor, and I'm elected every 4 years. Fortunately, you don't see my name, my signs around, because I've never drawn an opponent. I don't have to run against anybody, so fortunately. But I preside over the Oklahoma County Drug Court, and drug court, DUI court. We have a veterans treatment court, and we also have a program called REMERGE, which is a program for mothers, women I want to share just a little bit about the programs and some of the efforts that are going on in Oklahoma County around prison diversion, around healing, and then also a little bit about what we're seeing on the fentanyl front and on the opioid front. First of all, so I became a judge a little over 5 years ago, and part of my reason for becoming a judge was, as a lawyer in private practice, I felt like, and a member of our community for a long time, is that, Oklahoma, the state of Oklahoma, has an incarceration crisis, and, Oklahoma County is almost like the epicenter of the incarceration crisis. And, I always felt, we could do a lot better. And I know I've worked around people with addiction, I've worked around people with mental health issues, and I knew there is a better way. And we needed a lot of leadership, so I actually sought the position of being judge to be able to actually work in our drug court. And it's actually a little bit unusual whenever you have a district judge that says, hey, look, I want to do the drug court. That's usually what they take the younger judges, well, we're going to stick you over here in drug court. Like, no, we really need transformational leadership in this area because, even though I think we're kind of the epicenter of the problem, we can also become the epicenter of the solution. And so I'm really pleased, and most people, when you hear about what's happening in Oklahoma County, most of the impression that our community has around criminal justice issues is kind of driven by whatever you're seeing going on in Oklahoma County Jail. And unfortunately, that's usually not good news. When you open up, you see something about the jail, it's just not a lot of good going on there. I'm hoping at some point we can have some good solutions. But I do have some things to share with you around our diversion programs I'm actually really proud of. And I think as a member of our community, you should be proud as well. Because right now we have a little bit about the diversion program. So I run a program called Drug. Who's heard of Drug Court? Have you heard of that? You know what it's from? Okay. Yeah, so we have a drug court, we have a DUI court, we have a mental health court, and we also have a veterans treatment court, which is like a drug court, but for people that prior military service. And these are programs that are set up for people who are otherwise prison bound. That means they're people who usually failed probation multiple times, have never been successful on probation, or they've already been to prison once or twice, and they're back again. But they've also been identified as someone who have a moderate to severe substance use disorder, and they show an interest. I'd like something different. I want something better. I'd like to change. And so we have a really structured program that it's quite a rigorous program actually, where you're required to stay sober. You have drug tests you got to take. You use about 10 random UAs a month. So about every 3 or 4 days you're coming in a cup. And then we have treatment providers that provide treatment and individual counseling and group counseling. And we have specially trained probation officers who, instead of trying to catch somebody doing bad, we try to figure out what's going on. So instead of getting together whenever the lawyers and the DA and the judge and the treatment provider, we get together and we focus on problem solving. Hey, what's going on with this individual? Why are they struggling? What obstacles might be in their way? How do we give them support, encouragement, but also accountability to help be successful? So if you mess up in the program, hey, that's okay. You get a sanction and just keep trying. We keep trying. That's the accountability side of it. We also give people a lot of support and encouragement. I'm really pleased to let you know that we actually have the population that comes into drug court are people who had otherwise been prison bound. They failed probation before, but if you can complete our program, right now 4 out of 5 people, there's an 83% graduation rate. So 4 out of 5 people that come to this program end up graduating, sober, with a job, a GED, and set them off into flourishing. So at 83% graduation rate compared to a national average of 60%. So if you're talking about drug court in some other part of the United States, on average 2 out of 3 people graduate. In Oklahoma County, 4 out of 5 people that come to that program graduated. And the people that tend not to graduate usually fall in 2 categories. People just keep running away. They keep running away, won't ever show up. Or the people who keep committing crimes in the program. We got you in the program and you go out there and commit crime. But everybody else, we really, if you keep showing up, what I ask people to do, look, you may or may not know how to be sober. You know, if you've been out on the street for a long time, you've been drinking for 30 years, you've been using meth for 20, heroin for 15, whatever your situation is, your past does not have to equal your future, and you may not know how to be sober, but you can show up.
Yeah.
Show up. Once you show up, if you can show up, number two, put in some effort, try. Three, be honest. If you can show up, put in the effort, try it. I can get you through the program, you know, but you gotta keep showing up. If you mess up, you show up. If you mess up, you say, hey, Judge, I messed up, I need help, and let's try to figure out, doing problem solving, how to get you on the right track. And so, there is a lot of good stuff happening in Oklahoma County, around prison diversion, and by the way, our program, and just the drug court alone, has over 400 people in it. And when you add in our drug court, and our DUI court, and our mental health court, and our remarriage program, we are in the top 1% in terms, like nationwide. If you look at drug courts and treatment courts nationwide, Oklahoma County is in the top 1% in terms of size of programs. So we actually have a massive programs going on. Now, a lot of this has changed, you know, from the last 5-6 years since I've been over there. We've really put a lot of emphasis on, you know, these programs and these courts are just as important, if not more important, than any other program they have in that courthouse. So I get to be on the front line every day of working with literally hundreds of people every day that are wrapped in addiction. That are wrapped in addiction, and I'm telling you, if these are people that they could have quit on their own, they would have done it a long time ago. But they come to court, and matter of fact, I literally got off the bench about 30 minutes ago. We have these massive dockets down there. And so when people come in, they're required to go to treatment, they try to take their UAs, and we work on, there's different phases. So as soon as you meet certain treatment requirements and certain sobriety requirements, you get to go up a phase. Every time you meet other requirements, you get to level up again. So when you get the first 4 phases, what they call treatment phases, where we really kind of focus on stabilization, life skills, make sure you got a job, working on your GED, get in your well position. I can help you get your driver's license back. If you're in treatment, there's a special law that says if you're in treatment court, the judge can order DPS to give you your license back to you. So people can drive and it really allows people to start really having a normal kind of life, and that support and encouragement that keeps them going and moving in the right direction. The last phase of the program is called aftercare. That last phase of the program is where you kind of reached all your treatment milestones, you've got some good sobriety under your belt. That last phase, aftercare, where you're just demonstrating that you incorporate these principles in your life and you start preparing for graduation. When you try to prepare for graduation, that means right now the program's kind of kept you sober, because you got that accountability, right? So the last phase of the program is where you're working on your own, outside of the program, trying to create what we call recovery capital. Recovery capital is those things that keep you supported, that keep you encouraged, that keep you accountable even after you graduate. So when you graduate, you've kind of got your own support network, and a lot of times it is the faith communities, and it is the 12-step groups and youth support groups that kind of keep people going after they graduate from these programs. So, good news going there. So I'm proud of our treatment courts. One thing about the opioids and the fentanyl that it really has me concerned and perplexed. And unfortunately, we don't have a lot of good answers. So, when you kind of roll back the clock, 15 years ago, y'all have been following everything that's going on, the opioid crisis. The doctors over-prescribing medication as a part of it. And of course, when people get addicted to opiates, and then you can't have them anymore, they go out and find them on the street. And everything in the last 3 or 4 years, it's really just shifted from opiates that you could to chemically or laboratory-made fentanyl. So to understand what's going on here, you got to kind of roll back. A lot of it has to do with what's going on in Mexico. So if you were to go down there, these are run by the cartels, they're literally tens of thousands of acres of poppies. Massive, massive agricultural operations. They look like farms, I mean, big farms where they plant poppies. Thousands and thousands of people are employed out there planting poppies, watering poppies, fertilizing poppies. They got tractors out there harvesting poppies. They take it to the facilities and they process, they turn them into heroin. When they turn them into heroin, the size of heroin, the amount of what you would get when you're, whenever you're harvesting and processing the raw opium that's in there, turn it into heroin. It's kind of large, bulky, has a very distinct look to it, has a very distinct odor to it. It's pretty easy to intercept when they're smuggling across. But what they figured out whenever the cartels were watching what they were doing with methamphetamine, like, well, really, why are we growing all these poppies? Really, because with like methamphetamine, for example, all you need is a room about half of this size right here. If you just had a room half this size, it's not too far from a shipping point, or you can import these precursor chemicals from India and China, and we can make all the drugs anybody can do. And so literally, you can take a room half this size, and you can make enough fentanyl that you no longer need tens of thousands of acres of poppies. If you think about the manpower that it takes to plant and harvest, and you're hoping the sun's gonna cooperate, you're hoping you fertilize this thing, you hope your crops are gonna come in. They got rid of all that. They don't need to do that anymore. They just have a big laboratory down there, and they put the chemicals from China and India, and they can make what used to cost a lot of money and a lot of manpower and a lot of labor to create it. Now they can make it pennies, literally pennies. So what used to cost, so whenever you were using heroin, a street drug, if someone had a pretty bad heroin habit, they might be using $200 or $300 a day. Now someone that kind of habit, $20 and $30 a day habit. It's cheap. It's so inexpensive. So, and it's also easier to smuggle because it's so concentrated. And they figured out they can make it look about like anything. You guys heard stories about it. Pressing it look like tile. They can basically look like sweet tarts. They can make it look about like anything. And they get it over here across the border, and they got a super concentrated fentanyl, which is made in a laboratory. And they mix it with other things, and that's what people take. They mix it with what they call a substrate, and that's where they can smoke that, or they can shoot it, how they want to do it. And what people are dying, there's reason people are dying. I'll get into this in a minute, but they simply really don't. There's different categories of people. You got some folks that don't understand that the street drugs they're buying are mixed or laced with fentanyl. They think they're buying an oxy tablet. They think it's pure. They think they're buying something like an oxycodone. It looks like an oxycodone. It's labeled like an oxycodone. They've probably been taking oxycodone because they're in addiction. They've been taking them. They know what they look like. They got up what they thought was a trusted source. It turns out, wasn't that? Now, let's talk about fentanyl for a second. Now, if you were to actually look at raw fentanyl before it's mixed with substrate, y'all know what salt looks like, right? Little crystals, right? Six little grains of sand, 6 little grains of salt, 6 little grains of fentanyl gets you high. 9 grains kill you. The difference between life and death is so small. But whenever they're mixing this stuff, the cartels, when they bring this stuff over, they're mixing it in NutriBullets. They'll take a little bit of fentanyl, and they'll take a little bit of the substrate, and they'll put it in there with a NutriBullet, and think they're mixing it up. They're not mixing it like they would in a pharmaceutical grade. Like the pharmaceuticals really make sure it's mixed. They don't mix it correctly. So the cartels are not really, they're not trying to kill us. They just don't care if we die. They don't really care if we die. But that's what's happened. So you got the one folks over here that think that they're buying street drugs. Or they think they're buying, maybe it's cannabis, maybe it is cocaine, maybe it is methamphetamine. And Ms. Bray's right. They are mixing it. I have people every week that come in drug court, and I'm saying, well, hey, it looks like how was your week? It looks like you had kind of a rough week here. It looks like you're screening positive for methamphetamine and fentanyl. And they're like, Judge, well, Judge, I don't do fentanyl. I said, well, you know, it's showing up in your drug screen. But no, but I don't do fentanyl. Well, it's showing up in your drug screen. We want to get a confirmation on it. Yes, we send off to a different lab to do more precise tests. Sure enough, fentanyl's coming in your methamphetamine. You know why? It's a better high. Because, you know, if you get a little bit of fentanyl in your methamphetamine, it kind of takes the edge off, makes a little, so you kind of get a little high, and they call it speed bump. You get people that are cocaine. If they can blend it correctly, I mean, people that are really involved in addiction, if they can blend it correctly, for some of the people, I don't like it. You know, I had a guy the other day that was, he'd gone AWOL multiple times for the program. He got arrested for trafficking and fentanyl, so he was in front of me, he was getting pled out. He's being revoked from the program for being AWOL multiple times, come back in with multiple new charges. And I just had a conversation with him. We didn't have anything to say. He was being revoked, he was going to prison. And I said, hey, what's wrong with this fentanyl stuff? Man, how do you know you're taking it okay? Well, you know, he said, honestly, you really don't. You don't really ever know. It's always kind of a crapshoot if you're taking it. And I said, well, what is it like out there on the street? Out on the street, you know, and he said, Judge, he said, I've been doing opiates for probably 15 years. And he said, I know every dealer in town. He said, if you let me go right now, I couldn't even find heroin. I wouldn't even know, I can't even get it anymore. That's what I used to do all the time. I can't even get the only thing that's out there, if you're an opiate addict, is fentanyl. It's fentanyl because it's so cheap. It's literally pennies to make it. And the cartels know that, and they know if they can get it across the border, they can sell it. They can sell it, they can get us and our children addicted, our community addicted. And so this is really about profit. It's about profit for the cartels. It is really, it's frightening. It's frightening because years ago, when I first was really concerned about heroin overdose, we were worried about heroin overdose, even in my program. So I work on the front line, literally day to day. I see probably 40, 50, 60 people every day in my courtroom that are in recovery or trying to get in recovery, or they're still in early stage recovery, or still maybe even in active addiction. They're trying to get stable. And I have these conversations with, you know, how do we have to get stable? What are we going to do? And I would notice probably about 3 or 4 times a year we would just lose somebody. The only thing they didn't make it, they were in the program to overdose on heroin. You know, and now fast forward, you know, a couple of years ago, it started to be about once every 3 months, every 2 months, that somebody overdosed on heroin. And when fentanyl came on, it's every week. Every week, someone in my program, it's either somebody in the program or somebody immediately connected with them. It's their brother, their sister, their mom, dad, girlfriend. We're going to have, this was heartbreaking. I had a situation about a month ago where I had a child. The child had gotten into the mother's boyfriend's fentanyl. 7-year-old die of an overdose. And so it's frightening from seeing it. It is so real to me. It's so real to if you're out there, if you're in addiction. Addiction it is so dangerous to be in addiction today. I mean, there was a day, I guess you was out there running a gun and do your cocaine. That had its own risk. That had its own set of risks. It's got its own set of risks. I'm telling you, this fentanyl stuff is killing people every day. And I don't know what we're gonna do. I think it's gonna get worse when it gets better, but I really appreciate you guys coming together, making sure people are aware. I ask every one of you to go home and talk to 4, 5, 6 other people that you know. If somebody is in addiction, they want help, there really is help out there that, you know, we actually do have resources. Part of the puzzle of addiction is that one of the hallmark features of addiction is it really doesn't want to cure itself. You know, that's part of the puzzle. Is that, you know, somebody you can see how they're suffering, you can see how they're hurting themselves, and sometimes, hey, you know, you need help. Like, no, I'm good. But no, you're not. You're not. But you know, you show them love, show them concern, and if they are ready and they really do want to change, there are resources out there. So, you know, I know Hope is Alive is a sober living house, and they just do incredible work back there. Care for Change, that's a treatment provider that we used to work with Care for Change, the drug where they kind of changed their model, but they still do addiction there are resources out there, and for those of you, if you do have somebody in your life that is in addiction, the good news is that most people get better. They don't usually get better on our timeline. We don't usually get better in terms of how fast we want to. Usually, they've got to kind of break some hearts along the way. But if you look at the big picture and the statistics, most people actually do get better eventually. So there really is a reason to be hopeful. So anyway, I really appreciate y'all coming out. I do think the faith communities really do have a role to play in trying to keep our community just uplifted as well. You know, there's something powerful about people that have a faith that can inspire hope and that connection. And connection is a big part of recovery. Having in places that people are welcome, that they can be, even if somebody is struggling, like you come in here, you got to find a place for them to fit in, treat them well. When someone's in addiction, they're usually not the best versions of themselves. That's why I think part of the problem we have is that in addiction, sometimes I think about, like, if who would be, when you think about back in biblical times, who would be the lepers were the unloved, those were the outcasts, Today, who would be our lepers today? Who was our most unloved, unwanted, dirty, And I wonder if it is some of the people that are in addiction. And so, because when you get an addiction, it involves with just people not making good choices. They can lie, they can cheat, so that's not them. That's a version of them. That's not the real person. That's a version of them. And because it can be a pretty unsympathetic population to deal with, sometimes they do get neglected. But so if you do have, whenever you do have somebody in addiction, you have something. I'm not saying tolerate the intolerable. You got to have healthy boundaries. If you deal with somebody in addiction, you have healthy boundaries. But they do need love. They do need love, and that is a force. Love really only is a force that can really cure. Cure and helps they find hope and healing. So, anyway, thank you guys for letting me come tonight. Thank you guys for being here and being interested in this topic. And let's keep talking about it and keep working on trying to figure out how do we keep everybody healthy. Let's pray. Thank you so much.
If you have any questions for Judge Stoner, please feel free to talk to him after the session is over with. And Sandra, please come up. Robert Van. And has PowerPoint for us. She's from Hope is Alive Ministries.
Okay, can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, we're gonna talk about drugs and Jesus today, okay? So a little bit about myself. My name is Ann Sandiger, and I'm the grant coordinator for Hope is Alive Ministries. I have been with the ministry since January of 2022, and I am actually a product of the program. And so there you will see on the left, that is a woman that I don't even know anymore. That woman was on the verge of death. That woman was hopeless, and she was broken. And she didn't want to live anymore. But let me tell you, God had another plan for me, because that woman on the right, Yes. So I had my first experience with drugs and alcohol when I was 12 years old. I grew up in Edmond, Oklahoma. I come from a broken family, but that's not why I used. I used because I liked the effects produced by alcohol and drugs. I had that in me. I come from a long line of alcoholics. It runs in my family. And so when I discovered it, I thought, wow, this is it. This is my solution to everything. So by the time I was 16, I had gone to my first rehab. And by the time I was 19, I was addicted to heroin and meth. Overdoses after overdoses. you I should not be here today. I mean it. I mean it. My addiction took me to some really dark places, you all. Jails, institutions, doing things that I can't even talk about because my children are back there. Okay, but I'll leave it to you to fill in the blanks. Just living a life that was just full of shame and darkness. And the enemy had a grip on me. But I'll tell you what, God chased me down, and I'm going to tell you exactly how it happened. Okay? Yeah. Come on now. So I didn't grow up in the church, but I knew Jesus. Okay, so my dad, he was a believer. My mom wasn't for a little while. We would go to church kind of off and on. When I went out to California, I went on a path of discovering all kinds of things, dabbling in all kinds of things, the new age stuff, and just things that I shouldn't have been doing. And so when I came back to Oklahoma after California chewed me up and spit me out, I came running, okay? And I had some legal problems. And so my attorney's wife invited me to go to Crossings Church. And so I thought, you know what? I'm going to do it, okay? I am in that worship service, and I began to put my hands up. Woo! You guys know what I'm talking about. Oh man, the Holy Spirit just came down on me in light. And I just began to weep. And it was God, and He was telling me, come home. Just come home. You've always been mine. And after that, I sobered up, but I didn't do detox and I didn't do rehab. And before that, I'd been to over 20. Okay, I mean, I was stuck. I was stuck in a pattern of relapse, get sober, overdose, get sober, overdose, jail, get sober. It's a pattern. But so this time I didn't. I didn't go to detox and I didn't go to rehab. I sobered up in my house with those 2 babies back there. And let me tell you guys, God showed up for me in a powerful way. I remember being face first down on the ground, begging God to remove the obsession to use from me because every bone in my body was telling me, go shoot some heroin. And I had my eyes closed. And I'm not kidding you, and I know this is going to sound strange, but stay with me. Because my eyes were closed, but I could see. And I was on a desert highway. And I was tired, and I was thirsty. And I heard Jesus talking to me, and He said, you're about to embark on one of the loneliest journeys you've ever been on, but you come to me for a drink of water. And after that, I saw water being washed over me. A couple weeks later, I went to the doctor to get some blood work, and the stuff that I contracted while I was out there, gone. Gone. I will testify, okay? I will testify. He is real, and He is moving, and He is the same God as He was. We think He's not moving. We forgot. No, He is. He's moving. Okay, but see, that's the thing. You draw close to the Lord, right? What happens? The enemy gets pissed. Okay? And he came at us. And you know what? I didn't have a foundation. I didn't have a foundation built on the Word. And I didn't know what I was up against. And so, I thought, you can heal me physically, but you're not healing me of the stuff that's going on up here. And I got angry, and I got bitter, and I got resentful, and so I used again at God. And I OD'd. I OD'd one more time. My sister had naloxone, and she saved me. And so when I woke up, I realized I'm not getting out of here, so I better get busy doing what He wants me to do this time. I was immersed in this just covering, in this Christ-centered community where everyone was moving forward and on the same page and lifting each other up. And I've been to rehab, and it's like, oh, who's shooting up in the bathroom, like who can get what? And no, that's not what they were doing at Hope is Alive. Girls are in their room reading their Bibles. People are actually going to the meetings they say they're going to, right? I mean, praying for each other, lifting each other up. You can feel it when you walk in there. There's something different. And you were talking about it, Judge Stoner. There's something special about that faith. And so I went through the program, and I stayed for 18 months, and I graduated, and I got my children back. And they're both sitting back there. And it's amazing. And so I'm one of the people who is affected by addiction. And you know what? I'm also one of the people who can sit here and say recovery is possible. It is, and hope is alive, and it is possible. And so just to give you kind of a picture, we need to take the mask off. Let's just take it off right now, because there's people struggling. I guarantee you would be shocked and amazed at what is going on behind closed doors. I'm going to tell you right now, 165 million Americans, 12 and up, are using drugs. 12. Do you hear that number?
Yeah.
That's a magical number for a lot of people. They started out at 12. Something happens at that age. 100,000 people died from an overdose. That's a hard thing to say for me right now, because I just lost somebody on Sunday. And this man I got sober with in 2007, he had 5 children. 5. And he just couldn't get it. He just couldn't get it. We're stubborn, strong-willed people. And he just refused. But his life is not a waste, because I'm here today to testify to that and to be the example that if you do something different, you're going to get something different. Because recovery is possible. If I can do it, if you guys, I'm telling you, yeah, if God can bring me through it, He can bring anybody through it. 1 in 4 Oklahomans. Can you believe that? It's incredible. And so what are we doing about it? We are fighting. We are fighting so hard. So we have a couple of things that we offer to help with this. And the first is the long-term recovery housing program, faith focus, 3 phases. And then the second thing is for the families, because the families are so often forgotten. And it really is. I mean, it's a family thing. We all have to heal. I mean, to recover from what we are going through, it takes a village. It really does. It takes community, it takes accountability, and it takes a village. And so the Finding Hope support groups, those are for the families. And then we have Hope After the Loss. And those are for the people who have lost someone to overdose. And so where do we fit? So if you're looking at the full picture of a perfect recovery plan, most people are going to need detox. And then they're going to need 30, 60, 90 days of inpatient. And so then Hope is Alive is going to be that last stop. We're really big on long term, because it takes so long just for the brain to start healing and start functioning at a normal level. Minimum a year. I mean, minimum. I stayed for 18 months. And people who don't have a solid aftercare, long-term aftercare plan in place, they relapse at rates that are almost 100%. Relapse does not have to happen. It really doesn't. And so we do anything we can and everything we can to help these people. And then after they graduate, they come into our alumni association. Very, very, very active. They meet twice a month on the weekends for weekend activities. And then once a month, just recovery education, accountability, just continued recovery education. So there's some things that make us a lot different than everybody else. And I would say the biggest one is the fact that we're faith focused. Jesus is the answer. And we know that. And we are not ashamed. We're not ashamed of it. And so people, they can come into our program and not believe in Jesus or have another faith, and that's okay. That's absolutely okay. We're never going to keep somebody from the way they believe. But while they're in our program, they're going to get exposed to Jesus, because He's there. Right? He's there. long-term approach, and then the fact that we look at 3 phases. And then to give you an idea of what those 3 phases are, number 1 is very foundational. Like, let's get the job, let's get our meetings, let's just get our bearings, okay? And then phase 2 really sets us apart too, because we are looking at the behavioral addictions. And I'm gonna talk about it, because nobody wants to. Sex and love addiction, that is a thing. And that takes a lot of people out, because I can't tell you how many times in my life, get sober, find a man, he becomes my higher power, I relapse. That is so common among men and women in the program. And they'll tell you in AA, it's a rule, to stay out of a relationship for your first year. There's a reason why, because we're sick. I mean, we're real sick. So we peel back that first layer, which is the substance abuse, and then, ooh, now it's time to get down to the real stuff. What's the behaviorals? What's really going on inside? The codependency, the trauma. We're looking at all of that while you're getting a job and working, and it's a tough program, but it works. And then phase 3 is really beautiful, because in order to graduate the program, you have to sponsor someone else through the 12 steps. And that's our immunity. That's our immunity, is helping another alcoholic. And what a beautiful thing when you can go through that program, and then you can see the person who came behind you, and you can say, hey, I've been there. I've been there, and look at me now. And take my hand. Take my hand, because I'm gonna walk with you. And I'm gonna help you get to where I am. And then they do the same thing, and then you see it unfold. Ah, it's so beautiful. I get fired up. We currently, that's actually not correct. Right now, we're sitting at an 81% success rate. It does fluctuate. That's still astronomical. Okay, 81% for all those who graduate from the program. Right now, we've got about 40% that actually make it all the way through. But the national average for a sober living program is 7. We're located in 6 different states. We are looking to continue growing, and there's some really big plans on the horizon that I can't tell you about yet, but stay tuned, because it's big. And we are moving and on mission and pumped about what's going on in Hope is Alive. Those are pictures of our homes. We don't just want to be a drug test and a bed. You know, some of these places, you hear stories about people getting bed bugs and infestations, and no, just because you came off the street and you're a junkie, no. We're going to treat you good. You're going to live in a nice place, you're going to feel safe, and you're going to feel worthy of recovery. So it costs $1,600 per resident to run our program. $600 of that is paid by the resident. We do believe that it is their responsibility to learn how to pay rent. That is absolutely a necessary transferable skill that they need before they leave the program. We do have scholarship opportunities. That leaves $1,000 for us to find funding for, and that's part of my job, is to go out and find people to help us operate. And it's so much fun. And so these are some of the outcomes that we're currently measuring and paying attention to. Family restoration. Last year we had 43 children reunited with their parents. 43. Long-term sobriety, recidivism rate, financial literacy. Before they leave us, they're gonna have stable housing, gainful employment, and then we're also tracking baptisms. I mean, man, that's amazing. At our last culture night alone, Lance, he stood up, he gave a sermon, okay, and then we had a blow-up pool out in the parking lot. limp body, cold and clammy skin, discolored skin, especially in the lips and nails. And then so what you'll do is call 911 immediately. You'll administer the naloxone. You want to try to keep that person awake and breathing by talking to them, kind of wrestling a little bit. That's very important. You're going to lay them on their side to prevent choking, and you're going to stay with them until the emergency assistance arrives, and then we're going to pray. We're going to pray. And then we're going to pray that we can get them there for some radical life change, right? So it really is, it's such an honor to be able to stand here today after everything that I've seen and been through. I mean, God is so good. And so, I mean, I'm honored, and I want to thank you guys for coming out here, because I know this isn't an easy, pleasant topic to be talking about. So thank you for your time and for being willing to be open-minded and listen. Thank you.
Talk about a success story and a walking blessing. Okay, we'll have to have you both back again. Dr. Kevin McPherson is going to talk to us about stability in the family, the clinical part of addiction, and so forth.
Good evening, everyone. I want to first of all say thank you, and thank you specifically to Pastor Jemison and to this church for putting on this event, for inviting me to be here. I want to say thank you to Ms. Gray. But I just want to talk to you all for a second. I had some statistics that I think my previous speakers have done an excellent job. So what I want to start with is just giving you a quote from our Commissioner of Mental Health in the state of Oklahoma, and I truly, truly believe this. So I think this event is one of the ways that we can begin to do this as a community. And so Commissioner Kerry Slack-Hard said, we have an opportunity to save lives if we all work together. And truth be told, that is not necessarily history in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma County. No one would argue that we could not work better together. In fact, I think it was the pastors of the east side that had a slogan that was called, "We're better together." Really the concerns, clergy for spiritual renewal. So I take that seriously in terms of we're better together, and the question becomes, what are we going to be better at? So after I say thank you to Reverend Jemison, I do want to say thank you to the Care for Change staff back there, Ms. Johnson and Ms. Johnson. It's actually hard to get people to come out to work and come do another job afterward. But back there at our table, we do have naloxone. We do have information on 988. This is something that's different for us because Care for Change, you all may or may not know, but we turned 30 years old last May. So, from 1993 to now, and what we're having to do is that Care for Change is having to make some adjustments because the state of the community has changed. When Judge Stoner talks about fentanyl, that wasn't something that we was dealing with many years ago when we first started. So in 1993, we started because we were trying to stop the gangs and the stuff that was going on 23rd, remember? Yeah. Remember we used to hang out every Sunday evening on 23rd down there, we had the shootings. So that's where we came from, and for us, we started with a criminal justice emphasis. So for the last 30 years, you pretty much had to be a pro before you got sent to us. Almost all of our contracts were with the Department of Corrections. And so one of the things I said to our state senator, Dr. Young, I said, why do we have to already be in trouble before you send us to me? So we work with drug court, we work with other, but because it's a very, very competitive market in terms of keeping therapists, because therapists are hard to come by, and good therapists are even harder to come by. Then Care for Change is now going through the process, and we started a few years ago because I saw it coming, of rebranding from a counseling agency to a helping agency. Meaning that not everybody that comes to Care for Change will get therapy. They won't get treatment, but everyone should get help. Yes. And so that's what we're starting to try to rebrand into a helping agency. And when you look at our community, the state of the community would mean that we are suffering from historical trauma. And that's one of the things that I will be pushing and we will be pushing for the next year is that, yes, addiction is serious. But if you already suffer from historical trauma, then addiction is exacerbated in your community. And so truth be told, even before COVID, we were traumatized. Then COVID came along, alcohol use went up, domestic violence went up, drug use went up, all these things up. Did you all know that in the state of Oklahoma, the suicide rate for African Americans is more than doubled in the last 5 years? The suicide rate in Oklahoma has more than doubled in the last 5 years. But I've always been a person that didn't want to just talk about the problem without coming with a solution. And so some of you all, for the last 30 years, you know me, from educating the children, to counseling the people that get sent right down here on 36 and Kelly. We've been in this neighborhood for 30 years. And I never thought I'd be here 30 years later, let me say that. But I'm here now. And so what COVID did to me personally was that COVID personally traumatized me. I thought I was going to die. I had COVID multiple times. Because we never closed, we stayed open the entire time that COVID was around because we were considered essential. And so when you start thinking about death, and if you're a believer like I am, and God blesses you to live, you start saying, what can I do to be alive? What can I do if God's going to allow me to be around here a little bit longer? And so I was tired of us. I was tired of the community. I was tired of the work. Can you imagine 30 years of hearing the kind of stuff that I've heard and dealing with the people that I've dealt with? And then when it's your people and it's your community, it hits you totally and different because you take it over. And so in saying that, one of the things I begin to look at is that, listen, we are in a state that is taking some active steps to begin to address the problem. I know sometimes we complain about Oklahoma, but when you really look at Oklahoma, there's some pretty progressive things going on. And so the question becomes, Dr. McPherson, as you're rebranding Care for Change from a treatment agency to a helping agency, who's going to help you if you make the call and the people start coming? See, that was always my fear. As long as I was dealing with the criminal justice population, they had to come. Judge Conway would lock them up if they didn't come. You get sanctioned. That's why I love the drug court program. I love that program because it has teeth. Probation and parole program, sometimes they don't do what they're supposed to do, nothing happens. But drug court, if you don't do what you're supposed to do, no, there's going to be some sanctions. So I always like that because I think people should be held accountable. I think that your attitude, your altitude, and the attitude should be that, hey, listen, this is not acceptable. Now, you should say that from an understanding, empathetic perspective about addiction. And the problem is in our community, we don't know. We don't really know how to deal with this. And so one of the things I said was, well, Dr. McPherson, if you rebrand the agency and you make the call, there's nothing done in the African American community that you should not be trying to work with the faith-based institution. Because historically, that is our rock. Historically, if you didn't learn anything else, you learned your black history in church. I grew up in so we had something called YPD, the Young People's Department. That's how I learned the Bible, that is how I learned my morals and values, was from the traditions in our church. And so one of the things I said was, well, Dr. McPherson, how do you work with the faith-based institutions to start to bring those traditions back? Look around the room, you all. If we can get everybody in this room working on this issue, as Commissioner Slappenhart said, we can save lives. And so let's not pretend that our community is not overdosing. Let's not pretend that our children aren't doing it. They say those pills. That's what they call them. I was just taking some of those pills. Well, what pills were you taking? You see. And so what we have to do is begin to look at it again. I'm not a person that believes in just crying without coming up with a solution. So did you all know, and I say this every time, when I was here about a year ago, the first one I said this, that in the state of Oklahoma, to become a peer recovery support specialist, you have to have a high school diploma or a GED and be willing to tell your story. And so how many people are there in this room who have lived experiences? You know, you may not have been an addict, but most of us have been impacted by addiction. Very few of us don't. Everybody has somebody who's been impacted by addiction. And so the idea was that, Dr. McPherson, you need to start talking to our community about becoming peer recovery support specialists. You go through a 5-day training, you take a multiple choice test, and I think it costs $75, and we can pay you $18 to $20-something an hour to begin to try to serve in the community. Is that not what it says, help the least of these? So what what work could be better than doing this work in the community with a certification from the State Department of Mental Health? To be a case manager in the state of Oklahoma, to be a case manager one, you have to have 60 hours of college. That's it. Or you have to have 3 years experience in the field working with people, and you can be a certified case manager one. So you don't have to go get a degree. I'm one of those outfit people. I have a lot of outfits, PhD, MA. That means absolutely nothing. Let me say it again. All my degrees means nothing if I cannot affect the people that I'm trying to reach.
That's right.
Some of you, particularly the lady that was just before me, I applaud people who have achieved success and now they're willing to pay it forward. Willing to give back. But here's the thing, you all, the harvest is plenty, but we don't have to. So if I did say, listen, you don't have to be on probation. You don't have to have committed a crime to come to Care for Change. Ms. Jenkins, Ms. Jackson, Reverend, you can just send them, after you pray for them, give them a referral. But the problem would be if everybody came to Care for Change, we couldn't help everybody without some help.
Right.
So I'm trying to capacity build now. I'm trying to say to all the churches and everyone, listen, if you will go and get certified, you can be paid to serve. There's nothing better than getting paid for doing something that you really be do for free.
Yeah.
But how do you do that? And then once you get certified, what kind of training is available to make you effective at what you do? Because I'm sorry, 5 days is a good start. That's all it is. And generally, if you're a case manager, you're only going to do 2 days. And so I strongly encourage you, it's a 2-day training to be a CM1, it's a 4-day, I think, to be CM2. CM1 is 4, and so the idea is that what would happen if I could convince our community to get involved in solving our own problem? Y'all know me, that's always been our issue. Nobody's coming to save us. No, I'm sorry. If they were gonna save us, we'd be saved already. So in 2023, I have elders in the room, I have young people in the room, I have men, I have women. If we can begin to galvanize and then say to the state of Oklahoma, listen, we're willing to come get trained. We're willing to come get certified, but then once we get certified, once we get trained, where are the programs to provide the services that we need? See, we need to do an environmental assessment. I learned that graduate school. We need to do an environmental assessment. We need to look at our SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Y'all know some of this stuff. And when you do the environmental analysis, what I have found is that there, man, the harvest is plenty. We need trained people. We need recruiting from the churches. See, we need people that will say, listen, I didn't never really do drugs, but I raised 5 kids. I've been growing up in this community for years. Some of you all, nobody can tell you about the East Side because you have been here for the last 30, 40 years. I've been here for the last 30 myself. And so what I'm saying to you all today is that peer recovery support specialists, case manager 1 and 2, and you can call me, you can come see me, because I'm trying to recruit. Because my fear is that if I say send me the children again, because I've said it before and they can't. If I say send me the children, send me the people, when people come, we're gonna be open. We have more than enough clients at Care. I gave back contracts. Literally, I gave back contracts because if I can't do it excellent, I really don't wanna do it at all. So if you don't have the capacity to do this, and so now that COVID is over, I'm recruiting. I'm coming to every, I wasn't speaking, but I'm coming now to every event and I'm saying, yes, we can, yes, we can, yes, we can. And only if we decide that we can.
Yeah.
And so as of today, when you look at 30 years in this community, I'm getting the children of people that I helped back in 1993 and 1994.
Yes.
I mean, I'm literally getting the children of the people that I helped. And so I see the cycle. Firsthand, I see the cycle. And so a lot of things have gotten better in our community, but a lot of things have not gotten better. In fact, I would say that the overdose rate has definitely not gotten better. The suicide rate is definitely not gotten. I'm gonna give you one. The increase in PCP by women will blow your mind. When I was growing up, we called it whack.
Yeah.
And whack was something that crazy people did. You just want to get whacked. No, not now. PCP is on the rise, and specifically among our women. So if you think crack and crack babies did something to us, wait till you get all these things to eat. And so we need specialized programs. I know y'all thought it was gone and that it didn't exist. No, people on the street will tell you. Sister sitting in my office the other day and said, Dr. McPherson, and this is how you know she wasn't a little sense. She said, my profit margin. She used that word. My profit margin is even better now than when I used to sell crack. Yeah, she said her profit margin is better doing PCP than when she used to sell crack. And then again, as Judge Stone said, if it's about economics and it's about money, you know people gonna hustle to make their money, right? And so the idea is that the reality of it is that we need to focus on what I call stabilization. When you come sit and talk to Dr. McPherson and try to have some cognitive change, people want to know where they're going to eat and sleep. People want to know whether their basic needs have been met. And so we need peer recovery support specialists to talk to people about how to develop a relapse prevention. I'm talking about an actual relapse prevention plan written down, not just in your head, but an actual, what are you going to do when this situation occurs? What's your safety plan? How are you going to handle this? We need people working with you. All would not believe the number of women who come to my agency to bring their grown sons. You know what I said? I did a commercial some time ago on the radio station about send me the men, send me your boys, and guess who called? The women. And all the women were trying to get help for their men. You see, and I had to tell them, ma'am, I really want to help you, but if your husband, your son, your nephew, or whatever doesn't want help, they're not willing to come in, there's not really much I can do for you. And so we need family training. We need people to work with the grandma. Intergenerational solutions is what I call it. So as I look around the room and see all my beautiful elders, and I'm one of them too now, I'm proud of that. No, the solutions are in the room. It's just that nobody told you the impact that you could have with a little bit of training. And then the Department of Mental Health likes to talk about what's called lived experience. Meaning you might not have did all this, but you lived through some stuff. You raised the children. You've seen it in the church. Stop acting like we don't have issues in the church. You see, I ain't like to see. So truth be told is this: I feel great about getting back into the community. I feel great because I think the state of Oklahoma, we don't have any excuses. The fact that the state supports events like this, the fact that Judge Stone would even be here. He's not dumb. Yeah. And so, no, guys, we have a very unique opportunity in the state of Oklahoma to begin to address this problem and to begin to save lives in our very community. Yeah. And so one of the things that we're doing, I'm just going to throw it out there, is that during the last week of February, like this month, we're going to be trying to get a paradigm shift, a change of thinking from our community, from treatment for substance abuse and mental health to overall wellness. See, what are the 8 dimensions of wellness? If you have any wellness coaches in there. By the way, the State Department of Mental Health also has a certification called a wellness coach, where you can go become a wellness coach. I had a young man, one of my clients, he 18 years ago, got big muscles, and he liked to work out and all that. And I said, well, what do you want to do? He said, well, I want to be a personal trainer. I said, well, you really ought to consider the fact that you will have competitors as a personal trainer. But if you would become a wellness coach, that would set you apart from all the personal trainers. Because most personal trainers are dealing with fitness. Whereas wellness deal with the fact that your finance may affect whether or not you use drugs. Whether or not you like your job, your occupation might affect whether or not you abuse drugs or alcohol. Your family relationships might affect whether or not you. So we need to switch from this whole, to be honest with you, in our community, most of us don't want treatment. But what I realize is most of us will take help. Yeah. See, that's the difference. And so if we can broaden this in our community, which is why in February we're going to have a whole week that talks about 8 dimensions of wellness. And guess what number 1 is? Spirituality. Now they don't listen to number 1, but I moved it to number 1 because once again, for me, that is the foundation of everything that I do. It's my faith. See, I truly believe that we can change things with God's help. I truly believe that. At the same time, it's not going to happen unless we make the steps to do that. Yes. So again, I won't keep you long. I want to make sure that I ask you to please consider getting information about wellness coaches, peer recovery support specialists, case managers, 1s and 2s, and I'll take some therapists, LBHPs, if we can find them. But if those of us with all of those alphabets behind our names could have solved the problem, we could have done it already. Again, I have a PhD, but that doesn't mean anything if you're not serving and solving. And so we need to broaden the work pool. You know, we need to get brothers who have been to jail, sisters who've been to jail, they can say, hey, listen, I can tell you about doing time. You see, I need some people that used to be in the game to come talk to some of these young brothers that I got. But I got some 14-year-old young men that are bent on faith. I mean, it's like, what is wrong? So I need some OGs to come talk to them. Because see, if you're an OG from Shotgun or Hoover or something, this kid, because he's the main one I'm talking about is from Shotgun, he needs to hear from some Shotguns and some Hoovers that can tell him that is not the direction you want to go. But where do I find them at? Guess where a lot of them are? In the church. If I want to be honest about it, that's one of the reasons you got saved. Right? That's one of the reasons because you found God. And so I'm saying that after 30 years, my mindset has changed. After 30 years, what I realized is that no, we need more people. We need to work with our church. And then here's the most important part. There has to be some type of ongoing training, because just because you used to do drugs doesn't mean you know how to help people.
Right.
Let's just be honest about that. Just because now, it does help though, because I tell people, hey, you don't understand, Dr. McPherson, you never did crack. I said, you right about that? But I will take you to this person over here who did do it, and they can give you a perspective that I can't get, because you're right. I had a cousin one time. I don't know if he's trying to turn me out or what. He said, how you gonna be a counselor? You never smoke crack. Why don't you smoke some with me so you can understand? He's crazy. No, he actually tried that. And I'm like, but the point is that, no, you're right. There are some stuff that I don't understand with my doctor, but there are some other people who have been there. And as Commissioner Slacklock said, if we're working together, I can say, well, I may not have the, I got to go to it. I have the degree, but let me let you talk with Ms. Lisa. Let me let you talk with Mr. Mark, because they have been where you are. They have, and there's something to be said about that. But it has to be a collaboration. It has to be more than just one person and different types of people. So I encourage you all, and that's my main thing.
Yeah.
I believe we have everything and everyone we need in our community to solve the problem that we have. It's just a matter of recruiting you all. So if not you, then who?
Yeah.
If not now, then when? And so thank you all very much for the invitation to be here.
Thank you, Doc.
Yes.
We will now have another
Yeah.
testimony from Ms. Cynthia Thompson. And she's very interesting, and her story is very interesting. We're going to cut it a little short so we can get out by 8.
My name is Cynthia Thompson. I am a member of the Hillwood Missionary Baptist Church, where my pastor is Arthur L. Rain Jr. I have to tell you that because I love my church family. I'm a product of the Mount Olive Baptist Church, where Arthur Glenn Woodbury. Okay. They kind of got the same name. Okay. Anyway, Pastor Woodbury put me in the prison ministry because I came to this church as an inmate. So I'm gonna back it up to the 20 plus years I was a drug addict. I've OD'd. I've been in crack houses where people have just watched me on my way to death, and instead of trying to help me, they decided to go through my pocket, steal my dope, and just let me prison twice. I didn't have the privilege of being able to go through the drug courts and these sober living. I went to a sober living environment when I got out of prison. But prior to that, I didn't go to rehab and all that. It was like, get in trouble, go to jail. Get in trouble, go to jail. And it's all behind a drug addiction. All behind a drug addiction that started from a little bitty girl that I didn't realize that was inside of me that was causing me to run and go get high because it felt good to get high. But God. So when I ended up in prison, before I went to prison, I went through the courts, and the courts was giving me life without parole, life without parole, life without parole. I did 7 months in the county jail, and went from that 7 months to 7 months in prison. And they say something is good about that number 7. God working me. God working me in the courtroom because they was trying to give me that life without parole. I had every kind of high maintenance charges you could get from trafficking and cocaine, baby, to you just name it. Like stuff that could have given me life. When I stood before the judge told me, he said, somebody must really like you. I didn't have no lawyer. All I had was a public defender. He said, somebody gotta like you. I didn't understand it then. But I got 10 years. And I went away for 10 years. I did 4. Only 10 years sentence. While I was in prison, I was trying to fight my way out of there. And I went to the law library, and they say, well, all those charges that I had, they showed me the paperwork, they had been scratched out. Scratched out. So I did volunteer 4 years, and I came on out. I was afraid to be by myself because I didn't trust me. I left my children behind. I had 4 children. I left them behind to fend for themselves. We didn't have no other family. Mount Olive became my family. And going to that church, I got mothers, I got sisters, I got a daddy in Woodbury, you know what I'm saying? And those people, I grew up. Because I was raised by an alcoholic. And I didn't realize why I did the things that I did. But it came from my mother. She raised me. And all the best that she had going on in her life, her daddy molested me. So if her daddy molested me, it's a good chance he molested her. And when I told my mom about her husband molesting me, and she turned a blind eye on him, isn't it a good chance that her mama did the same thing? Because they didn't talk about that kind of stuff. You didn't talk about it. So I'm just telling you a little bit about where drug addiction started from. And what had to be cleaned up out of me in order for me to recover. See, I go around and I talk to people and I tell them my story. Because I'm not ashamed of the gospel. Because I didn't wake up one day and say, I think I want to be a drug addict today. And go get high. When it happened. And guess what? God turned that trouble and all that mess into a whole testimony. I have a full pardon from the state of never turn your back on that addict. If you can help somebody along the way, give them help. That's what I do today. I try to give back to society what was given to me. I go talk to people. I have a prison ministry, thanks to Pastor Woodbury, and then when he left, I went to Pastor Rainey, and Pastor Rainey, they support me. Dr. McPherson, I'm ready, because I have a, college education now. Okay? All right. I want that hat though.
Yeah.
So, I'm just saying, look at here. You don't know what that person sitting next to you is all about.
Yeah.
So I have a little information about my little business. It's called SOAR, Supporting Offenders in Achieving Reintegration. I'm here to help. My name is Cynthia.
He is very interesting. I want to thank all the vendors that are here this evening. Feel free to go by the vendors' tables and get resources and information that you want. The pictures that Reverend Brother Carruthers put together are some pictures from one of our other Overdose Awareness Day, and that was the last one in 2018, I believe. Thank you, my husband, Lamont Bray, for putting up with my passion. Carrying boxes for me. Reverend Brothers, Dr. Kurt, Reverend Dawson, thank you for your support. Sister Johnson, all of you, we all have somebody, there's someone in everybody's family. And I told my story in Vacation Bible School to the ladies, and I've always got this big. But that's okay, there's someone in everybody's family. You cannot throw your family members away. No matter what. No one comes from a perfect family. No one. I think we're ready for remarks. Give us remarks in closing. Are there any questions? Because we have resource information for everyone, and then contact information that people from Facebook have been asking for.
I just wanted to share with everybody, if you wanted to relive this evening, reshare this on your Facebook page. It was broadcast live over the internet, and we have several people that have been participating and appreciated the content. So thank you all so much. It's St. John OKC.
St. John OKC. It's a Facebook page.
Eyes have been opened and hearts have been touched. It is my sincere prayer that we will leave here today and do something. Whatever has been your calling, whatever has been your inspiration, as we have been encouraged, do something. Let's not just keep doing the same thing. If you always do what you've always done,